Welcome to Ink Outside the Box. I'm Robin.
And I'm Chaz. And this week we're going to be speaking to you about 5 tips to overcome writer's block and get started with your writing. So, the first tip that we've got for you today is free writing, which is some people love it, some people hate it. How do you feel about free writing, Robin?
I've kind of got a love-hate relationship with free writing. I am really bad about wanting to edit as I go along when I'm writing. So the way that we are taught as creative writers, it's one of those things that they say, don't edit while you're going through a free write pro time or whatever. And I have a problem with that. I can't just write and not edit. So that's a me
Yeah,
problem.
I do the same. I feel like very much the same about it. But I do think that free writing is a particularly useful thing to do. Even if you do go back and cross a bit out when, before you go on to the next sentence, it's not the end of the world, is it? For free writing is just, it's just a great way to let your imagination run loose, I think.
Yeah.
I
And
think
it
it, it,
doesn't
wor
have
it
to
works
be
well for me.
good. It can be trash. It can be garbage. But as
Well,
long as you're writing something, that's kind of the whole idea.
yeah, and that's a good job because mine usually is pretty trash. But yeah, no, it gets it gets your mind working, I think, free writing. I like it as a way of getting started with something.
It's like if you think about it as your mind having cogs, it's kind of like the oil that kind of goes in there and makes sure that everything's still working properly. It is just a way to kind of get over your kind of block. And that's what we're talking about is trying to get around that block, trying to knock it down or go around it or go under it or whatever you have to do. So
Exactly. And how do you what would you recommend to start a free writing exercise then? What would be your way of starting that?
if you're going to have a time where you're free writing,
Mm.
I would set a timer because that gives you an urgency to kind of get through it. And another thing is to have an idea of what you're going to use to write. So if you already have a project that you're working on, or if you have an assignment, if you're in at uni, or even in high school, if you have an assignment, that would be a good way to kind of get started. It's kind of like doing your research for an essay. This is kind of the beginning part of it.
Yeah, and what about prompts?
Well, I have actually used prompts, and in our introduction video, we'll tell you a little bit about our history, but writing prompts are very good because they give you a really good starting point. One of the stories that I wrote for our compilation, our anthology, was called Josie's Secret. And that started from a writing prompt of you found an unfamiliar key, and that ended up being a story about a woman who had found out that she had been kidnapped when she was a little girl. And where it came from, I have no idea, but that's how it started. And then there was another one that I wrote for that same anthology that was a writing prompt that you woke up and you found that you were invisible. And that one grew arms and legs, and I'm not even going to go into that one because it's really complicated, but it ended up being one of my favorite stories in that collection of my own stories that were included. So writing prompts can actually give you little ideas. You have to find a list of them and have something that you can look at and get excited about. If it's something that doesn't kind of spark in your head, then it's not going to work. But it needs to be something that you can get excited about, or something that maybe makes you remember something from your past, or something that you are familiar with, something you saw in a documentary or a film or something. I would also say that it could also lead to being used to remind you of something that happened as a child, or maybe even a story that grandma and grandpa told you when you were a little kid. It might remind you of something like that. And anecdotes is
Yeah.
another way to kind of get around that blockage of not having something to write. How about you?
No, Yeah, I totally agree. So one of the exercises that we did at uni, we were given some prompts, and one of them was the smell of turnips. And you mentioned growing arms and legs there. So I started writing about the smell of turnips, and particularly the smell of burning turnips, because when I was a little girl in the 70s in the UK, we didn't use pumpkins at Halloween. We were really tough, and we carved a turnip, or a Swede if you live down south, um, or a neep if you live in Scotland. And that's that burning turnip smell. It comes, like, well, smells are very evocative for the memory, and so that
Definitely.
came back to me. But as I wrote, it made me remember other ways of making money as a small child. Obviously they couldn't send us up chimneys, but we did used to gather around the local church whenever there was a wedding, and the bride and groom would always throw coins out for the children, the village children, and you'd have a scramble. So the piece I wrote ended up being about that, not about the smell of turnips, but the smell of turnips reminded me of that. And yeah, anecdotes and anything that's happened to you in your life. I mean, one thing that happened to me as a child um, has become find a body in cloud sneezing, you know.
That's right. Yeah.
So, I mean, I've fictionalized it because partly because I can't remember a lot, exactly what happened. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Just anything that gives you a start, I think.
So, what about journaling and dream diaries and stuff? Do you ever use that?
I don't tend to use dream diaries, although ironically or coincidentally, I had an incredibly vivid dream this morning. And I think it was set off from something I was watching on TV last night. But the reason I don't keep a dream diary is because I have absolutely usually don't remember much about them, or they're so, like, there's not much substance to my dreams, but a lot of people do, and a lot of people have
Yeah.
such vivid dreams. A lot of people lucid dream, and it's a great way of coming up with um ideas for stories. But journaling, I know that Laura, who worked on cloud sneezing with us, her writing journey started off from journaling for cathartic reasons, and she's come up with some amazing stories from that. So, and the other thing, the other thing is eavesdropping, listening into other people's conversations on buses, and in the chip shop queue or whatever. You can get some fantastic um, workable material from that sort of thing. Do you ever do that yourself, Robin?
I always do that because normally if I'm going somewhere on my own, I don't really listen to music when I'm traveling around, and I will sit in a coffee shop or on a train or in a park, and I'll listen. Sometimes I even make up stories about a conversation that I can see from a distance and I can't actually
Yeah.
hear what they're talking about. But eavesdropping
Oh,
is a great way to get ideas for stories. Even if you just embellish
yeah.
the mess out of it, you're gonna have something to work with, and you can create your own prompt from eavesdropping.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, and graffiti. I've seen some hilarious graffiti that's given me some ideas for stories. Yeah, but I heard a wonderful exchange between two old ladies on a bus once, that just ended up becoming a lovely little short story that I wrote. It was just so sweet. Um, so do you ever pick up old projects, Robin?
That is actually another one of my tricks to get around writer's block. It is something that I found that helps me because I work on several different projects at a time. And that sounds like it can be confusing and terrifying, but it actually, when I'm writing something, I will get to a point where I just stop, where the inspiration isn't there, or if something is starting to sound repetitive, then I'll put that away and let it sleep, and then I'll pick up something else and work on that for a little while. And sometimes it's a third or fourth project before I go back to that first one. But one of the things that we have done together is a feedback session that we do on the Open University website. And in within that, we often get this question, which is why we're covering that today,
Yeah.
is because of writer's block. And one of the things that I had suggested was to pick up an old project, something that you thought was dead, and to rewrite it, just to start all over again and rewrite it, maybe go through and edit it. And it actually was the trick that got one of our participants to start writing again. And she shared part of that project with us, and we it was wonderful. And
It
it's
was, yeah.
just one of those things. If it's valuable enough for you to start writing it, then it will be valuable enough for you to continue writing it and to continue to develop it. And picking up an old project, don't just leave it to die. Pick it up and let it, and just kind of breathe some air back into it again, and it will, I think it can come back to life. I really do.
I absolutely agree. In fact, one of the stories that I contributed towards Cloud Sneezing Reflections was an old project, and I wrote it. Oh God, I mean, it must have been tw over 20 years ago that I wrote it.
Hmm.
And when I picked it up, I'd actually learned how to write a little bit better by then, so I was appalled at how badly I'd written it in the first place.
Can't
But
imagine anything
I
you write is bad.
oh, it was dreadful. But the premise I loved. I loved the premise, and so I picked it back up and I used what I'd learned through the Open University degree course, and I really like it as a story now. Yeah, I think. But like you say, if it's good enough to start,
Hmm.
it's going to be good enough to finish. And I mean, sometimes I pick up a book. I mean, oh, I did this with Titus Grown. It's one of the best books in the universe, and A Clockwork Orange as well. I picked them up, started reading them, didn't really get into them, put them down, let them sleep for a while, picked them back up, and then just couldn't put them down after I picked them up a second time. And sometimes you find that with writing, I think, as well.
Yeah,
You know, you
yeah.
you you think, oh, this isn't going anywhere. And
Hmm.
then, a little bit later on, you pick it up and think, oh, why did I stop that? Or, oh, I hadn't thought of this, but I could change that bit to this and that could happen. And, oh,
Yeah,
I've got a really good ending for that now or something,
definitely.
So,
Definitely. So
yeah,
I think really what we're trying to say is just to write something, just to write. And another one of my tips is to pick up a book that's not yours. Just type, just transcribe what's already on the page. All that is going to do is to get your fingers moving, get your brain starting to think about writing it. You may even pick up a phrase or a word in there that inspires you, and to
mm,
use that to just get something down. If it's on paper or if it's on your computer, just write something.
absolutely. Yeah, just right. I mean, look, if you don't write, if you it's like anything, if you need to get to the shops, you've got to put one foot in front of the other,
That's
even
it.
if you're feeling really lazy. And it's exactly the same with writing. If you don't pick up the pen, you don't pick up the laptop or whatever you write on, um nothing's going to get written, is it? So
That's it.
just write.
That's it. Well, this is a really short video. This is kind of an introduction to what we're going to be doing. And you'll get a little bit more information in our next video when we give you a little bit more about why we can tell you these things and what our backgrounds are. And the best way to get those videos is to subscribe, like the video if you like it, and give us a comment, because those comments really do help us grow. It will also give us ideas of things that you are looking for as a writer. So all you have to do is just like the video and subscribe, hit the little bell icon, and that will remind you when one of our new videos comes up. We're going to be doing a new video every week. So if you want to keep seeing those, please come back. We'd love to see you, and we'd love to have some interaction with you. So I really appreciate you joining us today. And just remember, we want you to just keep writing.
Yeah, good
Oh,
luck.